So, quick thing before we get into it. If you've been watching this shit, if you've been liking this shit, go ahead and share this shit. Really appreciate it. I'm trying to grow out on all these platforms. I'm trying to get all of my ducks in a row before I really push a lot of stuff. But it's coming. Also, today is the first day that I've actually acknowledged the fact that I am recording a day in advance. So, happy Father's Day to all you crazy fuckers out there. Today I'm going to talk about probably one of my favorite characters in the whole 100 years of history that I love so much, around the 1700s to 1800s. It's a little bit more than that, but that's my favorite time. This guy is the most unhinged, batshit crazy, alcoholic, shares my own birthday type of human being. And it's this type of human being that matters the most. This guy wrote a couple little pamphlets. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier, the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Yet we will have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Tell me that ain't some American shit. Thomas Paine helped start 2 different revolutions on 2 different continents. He was nearly executed by guillotine over a clerical error, and after he died, an obsessed Englishman literally dug up his corpse, shipped it overseas in a sack, and then lost it. His name was Thomas Paine, and somehow none of that was even the craziest part of his life. Born February 9th, 1737, or January 29th, if you use that fucking weird calendar that they used back then. The son of a corset maker, he pretty much failed at basically everything he fucking tried to do before he turned 37. Once again, corset maker, which, I don't know, it seems like a pretty simple fucking design. He was a failed tax collector. He actually got fired from that job twice. He was a failed shopkeeper. First wife died. His second marriage ended in separation. By his late 30s, Thomas Paine was a broke, twice failed Englishman with nothing going for him. And in my research, I found out that this man only went to school for 4 years. That's going to be important later, I'm sure. Maybe not. Well, so as fate happens to fate, he meets Benjamin Franklin. I'm going to have to do a whole thing about Benjamin Franklin's... there's a lot of crazy shit that they do not show us. Anyways, Ben comes up to him and he's like, hey man, why don't you go to America? You might actually be good at something over there, because really, there isn't a whole fucking lot over there. And within about a year, the worst tax collector in England becomes the most important writer in American history. Some call him the father of the American Revolution, the voice of independence, the man who talked America into itself. Common sense. After the whole shot heard around the world at Concord and Lexington, Paine thought America shouldn't just revolt against taxation. You should fucking put all of her chips on the table and just go full in. He put out a 50-page pamphlet called Common Sense. It was published January 10th in 1776, and it sold roughly 120,000 copies in the first 3 months alone. Let me put this into perspective for you people. There's only about 3 million folks in this country at this time. And he sold 120,000 copies of it. You know, you think about it, like a lot of these, somebody bought it and they would read them in taverns. They would read them. And it quickly became one of the best-selling written works in the colonies. The only thing that was above it was the Bible. When Washington's army was on the verge of disintegrating in December of 1776, he wrote The American Crisis, opening with the lines, "These are the times that try men's souls." It moved Washington so deeply, he got himself a copy and then read it aloud to all of his troops, and it moved the entire army. Basically continental virality. Can you imagine being the guy whose writing got read out loud to keep an entire freezing, starving army from quitting? That's really not propaganda. That's some single-handedly talking a revolution into staying alive. While most people think that Paine's story ends with the American Revolution, it didn't. He got bored and he was like, I'm going to go to France. And he helped start another one. He was made an honorary French citizen and took the seat in the National Convention to help write their new constitution. He didn't even speak their language. My curls. But he made a fatal mistake. He urged the convention to spare the life of King Louis XVI instead of executing him. Compassion, yes, but wrong move at the fucking worst time ever. Robespierre and Jacobin extremists turned on him almost immediately. Paris police arrested him as a foreign conspirator before dawn and threw him in a wet 10 by 8 foot cellar in Luxembourg prison. Through his cell, he watched as the friends that he had made in his time in France marched out one by one and...
I should like to speak to me. Pardon me, I'm not one to complain normally, but this basket's full of heads.
And he was next. Somehow he lived through it. And here's how. The night before the mass executions, guards marked the doors of the condemned prisoners with chalk. They drew a white cross on 168 doors that night. Paine had a fever, and a friend had convinced one of the guards to leave his cell door open for some fresh air. And when the guards came through, they marked the cross on the inside of the door, because it was open. And when the door was shut, there was no fucking cross. The mark was hidden. And for a man who wasn't a fan of religion, it seems like there might have been some divinity in that. Or just somebody being stupid. It could go either way. Days later, Robespierre himself fell from power and went to the guillotine instead.
Holy shit!
James Monroe, future President James Monroe, personally came to the prison and got him released. Paine survived 2 revolutions, an appointment to get a French necktie, and got saved by the door being opened. Paine died in Manhattan, broke, and shunned for his writings on religion. Only 6 people attended his funeral. One obituary summed up his life. He lived long, done some good, and much harm. Speak your mind. But it was a different time then, was it? Fast forward 10 years after his death, an Englishman named William Cobbett, who had previously spent his career writing vicious attacks against Paine, all of a sudden had a complete change of heart, massive hard-on for the man, took it upon himself and decided that Paine deserved a proper monument in England. So he traveled to New York in the middle of the night with some hired men to dig up Paine's grave. They pulled the body out, fled to Manhattan with the police literally chasing them across King's Bridge, and sailed for England with the corpse. The plan to build Paine a grand memorial fell apart completely. Nobody wanted to pay for it. The public was fucking horrified because the dude stole them out of the dirt. And the remains sat in a trunk in Cobbett's attic for years. When Cobbett died, his bankrupt estate tried to sell off Paine's bones at an auction, and the judge refused to let a bag of human bones actually count as an estate asset. You can't sell bones, Billy. After that, Paine's remains, I'm a poet and didn't know it, completely scattered. Legends say some of the bones were turned into buttons. One woman in Brighton later claimed to have his jawbone, a supposed rib turned up, a skull here, femur there, and bones turning up in Australia and France, England, America. Nobody really knows. To this day, nobody really knows where Thomas's bones all are. There was a lot of grave robbing back then. Feels like I'm on something here. Pretty sure it happened to John Paul Jones, too. He wrote a pamphlet that talked the country into being the country, helped trigger a second revolution on another continent, survived a death sentence by sheer fucking accidental geometry of a fucking door, and only 6 people showed up at his funeral. And then his body got stolen and shipped overseas and stored in an attic until it was scattered in the wind. Thomas Paine put his quill where his mind is and got us where we're all at today. And regardless of how you feel about freedom of speech or trashing religion or trashing the country or the government or whatever. That's the point of it. We're able to talk shit about anything we want to because of the First Amendment. Don't ever lose sight of that.
Bitch, that's the pamphlet that flipped the script. One spark in 76 lit the whole apocalypse. Brains a man, age of reason. He never bit his tongue, called out tyrants, priests, and every fucking system wrong. Pain. Drop truth like guillotine blades. Liberty's ghost still haunting these modern slave states. From the colonies to Paris, he walked through the flames.
Uncensored forever, Thomas Paine.